Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here for this new webinar called Effective Conversation in Beginner Levels. So this is a topic that is very interesting for many of us, as sometimes we need more and more strategies to help our students feeling comfortable using the language, speaking in our classes. So I welcome each one of you. Some of you have been in my seminars, webinars previously. Some of you might be the first time that you're here, but I've been doing webinars uh, since a very long time ago, and I have done many webinars online and presential. So we're here to share what we do in our instruction, and we're here to also talk about new ideas and strategies. This webinar is possible thanks to the support of Aventuras in Learning. So Aventuras in Learning, and we have with us the creator of Aventuras in Learning, the very well-known Spanish teacher Valentina Correa from Chicago, Illinois, who is going to give us a little bit of information about Aventuras in Learning. So Valentina, please go ahead. I'm going to stop my screen so you can share yours.
Thank you, Diego, for the introduction. Thank you so much. My name is Valentina, as Diego say, and I am originally from Colombia. I teach currently in Chicago, and my experience is teaching in elementary and middle school. And I created Aventuras in Learning a year ago. This is actually we are in our birthday because September a year ago, I created Aventuras in Learning. And Aventuras in Learning is a platform where you can find different stories. I teach with stories, and I created Aventuras because I always thought, oh, teaching is so rewarding. I love what I do, but it's also challenging. And we know that it is hard sometimes when we don't have the time to plan or where we don't have enough time between classes, because sometimes it's just switching to one level to the other one. And for me, it was really frustrating not to have a platform that had everything in one place. So I was always jumping from one place to the other one, and it was really hard for me to connect my resources. Another reason is that some people don't know how to teach with comprehensible input or teaching for proficiency. And so I started to create in Aventuras because there was a lack of resources. I currently teach in elementary, and there were not enough resources for novice learners. So I started to create in Aventuras because of that. And I was always tired because I didn't have the time to plan, as I said before. So it was really hard for me. And so I want to stop basically to tell you, and I'm going to start showing you what exactly Aventuras in Learning is this platform. There are currently 3 levels. I'm going to switch here to the actual website. Can you see the 3 levels? And I have this by levels because each teacher will have will have to choose where your student is, right? It's different if you see your students 3 times a week, 4 times a week. And so this is for students who are novice. This is an example of the things that you can find. Each story has stories, and those stories come with animated videos. These stories come with animated videos. I'm going to show you a preview of this video. Sorry, I don't know why my phone keeps ringing here. I'm going to show you the first story. It's just a little bit. The videos are about 2 minutes. And then you could see here that I have like a little introduction of what you are teaching, what are the high frequency words, and what the story focus on. So here is the first. Diego?
La iguana y sus amigos. La iguana está feliz porque va al Amazonas. La iguana ve a una rana y dice:
Hola, me llamo Ava la iguana. Me gusta correr. ¿Cómo te llamas tú?
Me llamo Mérida, la rana.
Me gusta saltar. Hola, Mérida. Mucho gusto.
Ava, la iguana, ve a un chigüiro y dice:
Hola, me llamo Ava, la iguana. Me gusta correr. ¿Cómo te llamas tú?
Me llamo Guiro, el chigüiro. Me gusta nadar.
Hola, Guiro. Mucho gusto.
La iguana ve a una guacamaya y dice:
Hola, me llamo Ava la iguana. Me gusta correr. ¿Cómo te llamas?
Me llamo Maca, la guacamaya. Me gusta volar.
Mucho gusto, Maca.
Los animales dicen:
Mucho gusto, Ava. Bienvenida al Amazonas.
¿Y tú? ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Qué te gusta?
So this is an example of a level 1 story, and I also have teaching tips. So if you don't know how to teach, you will go to this part where I give you basically all the activities that you could do, from like introducing vocabulary to how to teach the story. Each story also comes with the flip book, so you could read at your own pace, and you can just like recognize the high frequency words in blue. And then you have a bunch of resources. You have flashcards that you could print if you want, if you are the teacher who likes more like printable resources, or if you want to do like different games, you could do that with these resources. You could also do the printable book, so students can take the books at home. They love this at the end of the lesson. You could also do the worksheets. The worksheets come for different levels. You will pick what level your students are. So you have like puzzles where they could do read and match. Or if your students are more like they can read, so you could do activities like true or false, or complete the sentence. So it's a bunch of activities that I give because I know that each teacher has different levels. So it is important that you decide what is best for you. You also have a video with questions. The questions will stop and ask questions to the students. And then you have a bunch of games that you could play electronically, like complete the sentence in different levels.
Me llamo, me llamo,
Grab the word and the
Me
students
llamo.
will like complete.
hola. Me llamo Ava, la
You
iguana.
have like a matching game where the students can just play to match the words with the images. You have scramble the stories where the students will read the story and put it in order. So these are like electronic games that you could do. But each story comes with all this. On top of this, you could create your own classrooms and you could assign the stories to the students. And so they could work independently. Or we also know that how horrible it is to have a sub day. Sometimes the worst for me is to call sick because I know that I have to create a bunch of plans. So you could just do this for your classes and assign the story to them. So you could assign any of those activities that I show you. You could pick the level of the story. You could do the level. So it really helps you to save time and have everything in one place. And on top of that, I also do a webinar every month. So in the part of the events, you could go to the calendar and then you can join our webinar, which is every month, is included with the membership. And then we have a session that is the Q&A where you just come and ask questions and answer questions. So it is basically a platform that has everything in one place. And so I am very happy today to be sponsoring Diego's webinar today. And if you have any questions, I know that I don't want you to pay for this. I want your school to pay for this. So if you want me, I could contact your supervisor. You could send me an email. I'm gonna write the email in the chat, or you could go to
I'm
our,
gonna tell me the email and I'll write it so everyone gets it.
thank you, info at
Info at
aventurasinlearning.com.
aventurasinlearning.com. Okay.
And I will be happy to connect with the administrators, and also you can go to our website and contact me there. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great time in this webinar with this great presenter that I love and I admire very much because he's also my friend. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much, Valentina. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Aventuras in Learning seems like a wonderful resource and so many things that you can do. So thank you very much. Very important for novice levels, and our webinar today is dedicated to these novice levels that are the majority of students in the United States are novice level students. Okay, so let's get started. Thank you so much again, Valentina. All right. So we're going to talk about conversation, and we're going to talk about conversation in beginner levels just because it's so important to help our students speak in the target language. And also because I was teaching a few years ago, let's say probably 20, 22 years ago, and some students came to me and they said, "Hey, senor." I'm like, "Yeah, we have a great idea to share with you." I'm like, "Sure, go ahead. What's going on?" And they said to me, "We think that you should have a conversation class." And I was like, "Wow, what?" I got a little offended because I thought we were doing conversation as part of the class. And I asked them, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Yes, a class where we just practice conversation, where we just talk." So I wasn't very happy with myself because I realized that I wasn't probably doing enough things to make them feel successful with the speaking part of the class. And since that moment, many years ago, it was my goal to promote and to include as much as I can conversation and speaking to the point where I realize that the time that we share with our students in the classroom is a precious time that we should be using to interact with them in the oral way, not to have them complete a bunch of papers or keep them quiet while they are reading. That time that we spend with them is so valuable, and for many of them, if not for the majority of them, it is the only time where they can be exposed to the language, to the target language. I just had parent-teacher conferences last 2 days, and one of my questions to the students who were in front of their parents was, how do you expose yourself to the target language outside of the classroom? 80% of the students, no. Well, maybe some of them said, "Oh, I have music in Spanish," and well, I should I ask, what do you listen in Spanish? Because we know the type of music that sometimes they listen to. And a student told me, "I love Gasolina." Gasolina is a reggaeton. I actually like that song, but it doesn't say much, okay? It's just the rhythm and all of this. A couple of them mentioned probably seeing some kind of like influencer on Instagram, Spanish influencer or Spanish speaking influencer on Instagram. But in reality, they don't have the opportunity to be exposed to the language, which is one of the most important things when you're trying to, and I don't like to say learning, but trying to acquire a second language. And that's why we're here this afternoon to talk about effective conversation beginner levels. So I'm going to share some things that have actually worked in my instruction. So let's start with the welcome and framing. My name is Diego Ojeda, and I'm a Spanish teacher in the city of Louisville in the state of Kentucky. I have taught several levels of instruction. I have taught middle school, high school, college level, technical college level, of Spanish here in the United States for the last 26 years. And I'm also an author. I like to write comprehensible poetry, which is poetry that Spanish teachers can bring to their classrooms. And I'm also a consultant. So I do these professional development webinars online, and also sometimes I get invited to present to a school district or in conferences. So when we talk about conversation in beginner classes, we need to think about the most important aspect, and Valentina just mentioned this, the input. So make sure that our students are exposed to the language. Sometimes we get a little upset when our students mispronounce words. That's not saying that they are not paying attention or that they are not studying or they can care less. That's just saying that they are pretty much reflecting, resembling the input that they have had throughout their, second language instruction in their lives. And they come from different environments, they come from different teachers, and throughout the years, they have had this particular input. That's what they start giving us in our classes. So we can be very lucky, and the students probably had wonderful input in their previous classes. Or we can be not that lucky, and maybe the students didn't have a very valuable input when they were in elementary school if they took these classes, or language classes in elementary school. Or we can be lucky again, and this is the first time that they are taking the Spanish class, the French class, the German class, Italian class. You are their first world language teacher. So you have the power and also the responsibility to give an input of quality, because you start writing their story right now. Also, it is important that when we talk about conversation, we take into account how the student is feeling, their feelings. This is a very complex age. Teenagers live situations that are very particular to their age, and the world, it's a little difficult for them. So that creates a lot of anxiety. And if we put one more drop of anxiety in the bucket, that's probably not going to have the results that we want. And most important, that our interactions in the classroom, and why not outside of the classroom with our students, are meaningful. In other words, that they see that there's a goal for them to be learning this language. How can they get to that place? When they feel that they can communicate. Okay? We can tell them, guys, we can tell them, hey, you should be learning Spanish or French or this language because Spanish is used in 23 countries around the world, because 20% of the population in the United States speaks Spanish, because many of the businesses, because you can make more money in the world of work. We can say all of things, but you know what? Many of those things are still not part of their world. So they need a meaningful interaction with us, and there's nothing more meaningful than feeling capable of communicating in the language that we are sharing with them. Okay? So what word, and this is for you guys to please write in the chat right now. I can read you. I know you cannot read each other, but I can read you. What word best describes your beginners when you ask them to speak? I'm giving some examples here. They're shy, funny, quiet, surprising, or surprised. What word will best describe your beginners when you ask them to speak? Okay, please write down and I will read you. Okay? And of course, we have different experiences here. Okay, beginner students. Okay, so someone says terror. They are terrified. Yes, that can happen. I've seen it. Okay, I've seen it too. Enthusiastic. Yeah, I have also seen some students that are enthusiastic. Funny. Okay, they think it's funny. Nervous. Yes, nervous. Unsure, of course. Quiet. Uh-huh. Very shy. Shy, unsure. Excited. Yes, they are excited because they're gonna learn a new language. Some are shy, sometimes confused. LOL. Yes, I agree with everything. And you know why? Because we have many students in our classes. So that means that in one class, we can have all of those situations. We can have the student who is enthusiastic, we can have the student who's terrified, but we can also have the student who's excited about what they're going to be doing in the class. These are beginner level students. So we have some work in our hands, to help them get in there to feel confident. Okay, so these things are things that come to our mind when we think about beginners speaking Spanish. Okay, there's a common tension here. We want to speak and we want the students to speak, but there's resistance. There's resistance there, and I believe that's what we must focus on in our language classes to destroy kindly that resistance throughout the different levels of instruction. More than, okay, let's make sure that they write very good. Let's make sure that they read a lot. Yes, that's important. But there's nothing more important than helping the students destroy that resistance with the language, especially with languages like Spanish, where what we say is what we write. It hasn't happened to English, and I know my experience with English, where I say something in English and then I'm going to write it down and it looks quite different. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's start here with the foundation. So these things that I'm going to share are part of my philosophy on speaking, but that doesn't mean that I came up with the ideas. It's just things that I have adapted in my instruction and have become the basis, the philosophy when I work with speaking in my classrooms. The first thing, comprehensible input. In other words, students, number one, need to be exposed to the language, exposed, but not just exposed to any kind of language. They need to be exposed to a language that they can understand. But, okay, Señor Ojeda, how is that possible if this is the first Spanish class they take? Okay, because we have so many resources at hand that will help us get in there. Like, for example, many languages that we teach have cognates with English. Cognates, which are words that sound similarly or are written similarly in both languages. So we take a lot of those things. And we can work with images, for example, or we can use strategies to help making that input understandable for our students. So that's the first thing. Expose, make it comprehensible, and then later on, we ask them to produce. Okay? We cannot ask them to produce right away, the first week. That's detrimental. So it is important that the speaking emerges in a natural way. So for that, the input must be solid. Okay, for example, if we use images, and this is a webinar for adults, that's why I use la cerveza. So I can tell them, okay, clase, ¿cuál te gusta más? ¿Prefieres, cognate, la cerveza? ¿O prefieres la soda? ¿O prefieres agua? But here I'm using the word gaseosa, which is the way we say it in Colombia. We don't say soda, we say gaseosa because it has gas. So, ¿qué prefieres? Cerveza, gaseosa, agua. And I'm showing them the images and the way it's written. So comprehensible input, even though they had no idea how to say cerveza, soda, or water. This also shows us that we don't have to go in a linear order. In other words, not always we have to start with uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or January, February, March, because so many classes, that's what we do. We just go linear. Yeah, we start from the beginning and we keep going. No, you can start with anything as long as you make it comprehensible. So here, I'm not asking you, but this is just an example with images. Of course, for the students, you can have a key. ¿Qué prefieres? ¿Un perro? ¿Un gato? ¿O un elefante? And you have the pictures. You're making it comprehensible. We're talking about conversation. So those first interactions are limited, but we need to make sure that they happen. So, chicos, ¿qué prefieres? La cerveza. Okay, la cerveza. Levanta la mano. So some of them raise their hand. They don't know how to say levanta la mano, but you say levanta la mano. They see you raising your hand. So those who like cerveza raise their hand. Oh, ¿te gusta la cerveza? Ok. ¿Quién le gusta la gaseosa? Levanta la mano. ¿Quién le gusta el agua? Ok. Michael, cerveza, gaseosa o agua? Cerveza. Doesn't matter that they don't say me gusta la cerveza. No, cerveza. Mary, cerveza, gaseosa, agua. Agua. Okay. Those first interactions are so important because the students, even though they're not having a solid conversation with you, they feel that they are using the new language to communicate something. Okay? So that's the importance of comprehensible input and how we bring that comprehensible input to our classes. We have another example here. This is more to the students that we are dealing with today, beginners. So we show 3 images: apple, dog, soccer ball. So we say, I'm a Spanish teacher, slowly in Spanish. Esto es una manzana. Okay. Esto es un perro. Perro. Okay. Y esto es un balón de fútbol. And then another strategy. I ask them, ¿es una manzana sí o no? Y los estudiantes, they answer, inquire, sí o no. Ok, chicos, ¿esto es un perro? ¿Sí o no? They answer, sí o no. Chicos, ¿esto es un balón de fútbol? ¿Sí o no? And they answer, sí o no. Y chicos, ¿esto es un perro? No. ¿Esto es una manzana? No. ¿Esto es un perro? Sí. And then later on, chicos, ¿esto es un balón de fútbol? No. And then you ask, ¿qué es? And then they probably say, manzana. It's probably that they're not going to say, it is an apple. They just say apple. See? And then you say, sí, es una manzana. And then you ask another student, hey, is this a dog? Chances are that that student is going to say, es una manzana. Why? Because the beauty of comprehensible input is that the student is being exposed to the language. Their brain knows that you are speaking the language the right way. And every time that they hear something a little different, the brain starts collecting that information. So we don't have to sit down for half an hour to review the definite and indefinite articles. El, la, los, las. Un, una, unos, unas. And spend the whole week working on that. Let's apply it through comprehensible input. And then later on, we can ask, ¿prefieres la manzana o el perro? See? So they say perro. not just sí or no. They say the word, they see the image, they are learning. So we see that just with a few words and visuals, beginners are already participating in conversation. We are having conversations with them and they feel successful. I invite you to, if in your area, you can go to a training one weekend on some or other language that you're not familiar with, but a training that is done with acquisition driven instruction and comprehensible input, that you experience that excitement when you see that you can say 1, 2, or 3 words, that you can express an idea after 1 or 2 hours class. So that is maximizing our time with our students in our instruction. Okay, so the key idea here is that the students don't speak if they are anxious, if they are afraid of being wrong. So according to Dr. Krashen, the affective filter blocks participation when anxiety is high. And Dr. Krashen said that, and we all know that because that happens in our classes. So we need to lower that affective filter. How? Besides these strategies, there are some other things. We can use humor. Okay, well, I just don't know many jokes in Spanish. It doesn't matter. See? Exaggerate to teenagers, kids from like 12 to 17. Exaggeration is humorous. So when you exaggerate, they laugh, but they are acquiring the language. You're using facial expressions to make meaning to whatever you're saying. They like that. And most of all, we normalize mistakes. We celebrate effort, not perfection. Even in my AP classes, because I teach advanced levels, they had a conversation the other day about immigration. And they have to talk naturally to each other about specific topic based on a reading that we were doing. And they start talking. And I know they're making little mistakes here and there, but at the end, clase, aplaudimos, excelente, muy bien, excelente. That is helping them feel confident. And some are going to say, you're helping them feeling confident making mistakes. Yes, because we learn from mistakes. And because at some point they're going to listen the right version, but they are already ahead of the game. So it's easy for them to make that correction. How do I know that? Because I also have been a language learner for the last few decades of my life. And I noticed that my brain makes those corrections. And my English is not excellent, it's not even good. See, but I know that it's better than yesterday. Okay? So we celebrate that effort, never the perfection, por favor. And we say, excelente, chicos, excelente, buena participación. And something that we don't say, and that's why it's in red here, we don't say, lo intentaste en español. For those who doesn't know what that means, it says, you tried in Spanish. That's a little condescending, okay, to tell them, oh yeah, you're trying, good, honey, you're trying. No, excelente, muy bien, ¿cuál es el problema? There's no problem, let's keep going, okay? And another important strategy besides humor, besides normalizing mistakes, is the concept of building community. How do we build community? When we encourage our students to work with other students in the classroom. Chances are that they have a couple of friends in the classroom. Chances are that they sat next to them, but we need to come up with activities that allow them to work with different people in the classroom. Sometimes that can also be a good thing for classroom management, because if they're not always working with their friends and they work with someone else, they tend to be a little more quiet. So keep these things in mind. All right, my friends. So a classroom example here. Start class with a silly but a safe question. ¿Quién quiere un elefante en su casa? Students laugh, but they can answer sí or no. Okay? ¿Quién quiere un estudiante en su casa? ¿Quieres un estudiante en tu casa? Sí o no. The humor lowers tension and creates permission to speak. Advanced student, a more advanced student could say, yo no quiero un elefante en mi casa. Okay? Students are more willing to speak if the conversation matters to them. How do we make it matter? Not always talking about the things that they particularly like. We make it matter when we make them laugh. We make it matter when they don't feel the pressure that they have us on top of them, always correcting their mistakes. And it matters to them when they see that they can communicate among them or with others. Okay? So, examples of real life interactions for beginners. Greeting a friend. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Bien, gracias. Expressing a preference. ¿Te gusta la pizza? Sí, me gusta. Or reacting with rejoinders. Teach short, fun interjections like qué chévere. ¿En serio? That students can throw into any exchange. ¿Te gusta la pizza? Sí, me gusta. ¡Qué chévere! ¡Qué chévere! ¿Sí? Muy bien. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, gracias. ¿En serio? So putting these little rejoinders not just makes the language sound more natural, but they love it because it's just kind of like another level. And these are rejoinders, or probably sometimes they are part of slang that people in real world use. At the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you a list of rejoinders, 30 rejoinders that you can use in the Spanish class and 30 rejoinders that you can use in the French class. Okay, so stick with me. All right, so going back to this, let me see. Okay, perfect. All right, so it's important that we consider the student-centered growth approach, okay? In other words, let's always, celebrate progress. It doesn't matter if the response is just a two-word response. We want them to participate. We want them to communicate. If a student answers chocolate to ¿qué prefieres, pizza o chocolate? Celebrate. Perfecto. Respondiste en español. But over time, then we scaffold. And prefiero chocolate porque es dulce. And then we start climbing on the proficiency scale. And we start explaining in the target language why you like this or why you like that. But they need to start with answer just like chocolate, instead of like prefiero chocolate. See, chocolate is fine. We're gonna praise all of their efforts for using Espanol, so they build that confidence because they are trying. I mentioned that I had parent-teacher conferences the day before and Thursday, Friday. And my Spanish 4 students, this is the first year they're with me. And they're speaking, they're conversing in my class. And one of my questions was, what do you want to focus on for the remainder of the year? And some students, I want to keep speaking. And how come? Why? Why is that important? And some of them said that in previous experiences, they feel really awkward when they wanted to speak or they had to say something in the class. It made them feel awkward. Why? It's probably because we have not taken into account all those steps that I have presented to you today previously. Let's talk about some practical tools. Okay, so warm-ups and micro tasks. Here we go. So we're going to create a digital yes-no corner. And this is digital because we are over Zoom right now. For example, Do you like to dance? Please add in the chat, yes or no. Do you like to dance? Please write in the chat, yes or no. Okay, yes, yes, yes. Sí, me encanta. Sí, yes. Okay, perfecto. Now, we are digitally here, but in the classroom, we can have two corners. Sí, no, you go to sí, you go to no. You don't know the word dance yet, put an image there. Te gusta bailar y se mueven. Y otra pregunta rápida. ¿Sí? ¿Tienes un gato? Okay, in the chat, do you have a cat? Do you have a cat? Yes, no? Yes, no? You have a cat? Sí, no. Do you have a cat? ¿Tienes un gato? No, 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 no. Oh my gosh, no. Sí, se llama Louis. Okay, good for you, Maria. We have a cat here. His name is Mr. Cattles Ojeda. Okay, do you want coffee right now? Please answer. Do you want coffee right now? No, no, sí, no. Ah, es sábado. Siempre, siempre. No. These students are too advanced. They're just throwing words like siempre. Okay, so we create these corners with questions. This is a strategy that we can do anytime with any topic as long as we give them some kind of input if we believe that they are not understanding what we are asking them. Okay, so create that digital corner. All right, so the goal is to spark talk time without any pressure. Then we can go ahead and ask those questions that I suggested before, okay? So, ¿te gusta el chocolate? Students move to the yes side or the no side in the room. And then once there, say aloud, sí, me gusta. No, no me gusta. So the students who were to yes. Okay, you say, chocolate, sí. Sí, me gusta. Chocolate, no. No, no me gusta. Okay. So for online classes, there's a variation that we can also put the thumbs up or the thumbs down. I hope that we don't have to go back to COVID, so we don't need to think about how to do it online. Students participate with a very low stress type of activity. This is warm-ups, micro tasks, okay? Find someone who, beginner version. So we give the students a short list. Encuentra a alguien que, you explain them, tiene un perro, le gusta la pizza, toca un instrumento, y los students caminan, students walk around asking, ¿tienes perro? ¿Te gusta pizza? ¿Tocas un instrumento? ¿Tienes perro? ¿Te gusta pizza? ¿Tocas un instrumento? And they are writing down their answers. It works because with very limited vocabulary, they are repeating, they are moving, they are having real interactions. So we're kind of like scaffolding, to an activity that is a little more involved. Visual prompts. So show a picture of a park, a soccer game, or a plate of tacos. Ask, ¿qué ves? Or ¿qué prefieres? Students answer with a word or short phrase. Tacos, fútbol, un perro. ¿Qué ves? O ¿qué prefieres? So the visual scaffolding sparks real responses among the students. Okay, and I have here this document with some of the ideas that I have shared and a little bit more, okay? But in order to make sure that these warm-ups are successful, it's very important to keep them short, 2 to 3 minutes. Do not spend 20 minutes students interviewing each other because we know the results. But do them often, see? Because when they are predictable, that helps the student, kind of like having a routine. And always keep the novelty high. So I'm going to share with you in the chat right now this document that I promised that I was going to share, where I have kind of like a summary of what I just said, but a little more with more examples. So I'm going to put it in the chat. What happens here is that you're not going to be able to copy and paste. You need to open it from the chat. Open it right now from the chat and leave it open in your browser. So that way you can save it later, okay? Because we cannot copy from Zoom, and then once I finish the meeting, you're not going to be able to access this. So again, that document is a summary and more examples of this warm-up and microtasks section that I just talked about. So please open it in your browser and leave it there for now. Okay, let's keep going. So now we're going to talk about conversation routines. So the goal is to build fluency and gradually through predictable structures. Okay, structures. And we talk about roles. We assign roles, but not the role like, okay, you're the one who always closes the door. You're the one who always distributes this. You're the one who always erases the board. No, no, no. Roles here, real roles for conversation. We have an asker and a responder. Why is this important? It's important because when the students know what the role is in a conversation, it's safe for them. So, asker and responder. And day one, something very simple. ¿Cómo estás? And the responder, bien, gracias. And then we move, and we add complexity to these conversations. ¿Qué te gusta hacer después de la escuela? Me gusta. So we're working with structures, language structures that we can have as a base, as an examples in the class, and we can work with them, okay? Then we rotate those roles. So everyone practices both sides. Why it works again? Because it's predictable, it's repetition, and the students feel comfortable and they can see the progress. At the end of the webinar, I'm going to share with you a document that has about 30 sentence frames for beginners that you can work and rotate and keep working. It doesn't matter if it's not part of the technology unit or if it's not part of the family unit. No, let's get away from that way of thinking, textbook thinking. See, these are structures, sentence frames that are going to be so helpful for them. Okay, so hang around so I can give you those documents later on. Conversation routines, we also use again the rejoinders. So in order to help them react in an authentic way, we use rejoinders. So we can work with whatever, 3, 5 short, fun phrases. Que chévere in Spanish means how cool. En serio, really? No puede ser. I can't believe it. I don't believe you. That's impossible. No puede ser. So, me gusta estudiar. Roles again. The other one says, no puede ser. So, one student gives the rejoinder. The other student, one student poses a situation. The other student has to answer with a rejoinder. No puede ser. And then you can ask them to include these rejoinders in conversation. Why does it work? Because the students love having really ready-made expressions they can use anytime and it feels real. Okay. Sentence frames. There you go. Start simple. Me gusta la pizza. Me gusta el chocolate. Me gusta la hamburguesa. Then we expand gradually. Me gusta la pizza porque, and then you can repeat. Me gusta el pepperoni. ¿Sí? Me gusta la pizza porque me gusta el queso. Ok. No me gusta la pizza, pero me gusta la hamburguesa. No me gusta la pizza porque no me gusta el queso, pero me gusta la hamburguesa porque me gusta la carne. Challenge them constantly to say more. Say more. Say more. Why it works? Scaffolding allows growth while keeping structure clear. Okay, my friends. Again, I have a document here that I'm going to share with you that summarizes and expands this particular section. So I'm gonna put it in the chat right now. Again, please make sure that you open the document and leave it in your browser. Leave it for later. Okay, that's the conversation routines. Okay, there's another example here, but we're going to skip it because I already talked about that. Number 3, we're going to talk about relevance, community, and authentic purpose. For this is a question for you. Please answer in the chat. If you beginner students could talk about only one topic all week, what topic will they choose? Okay, themselves, video games, what else? Comida, likes and dislikes. Oh my gosh, be careful with that 6, 7. Please go ahead and investigate what means 6, 7 because it's not good. Football, animate, pets, animals. Okay, it's exhausting. Okay, perfect. So if they could talk about one topic every day, every week, what it will be. Thank you for the examples here, what they will choose, right? Well, I had a Padlet here, but you guys wrote it in the chat, which is great. So we talk about relevance. We talk about how it's important that the students care about what we're talking. Again, that doesn't mean that we have to talk about what they talk with their friends when they are not in our classes. It just has to be relevant, okay? We can ask, yes, about their music, their food, sports, or weekend plans, but mostly the secret here is that they feel that they matter, that their answers matter to us. So for that, it's important that we don't go that fast, okay? Like for example, if I ask, ¿escuchas música de Bad Bunny? Okay, I have to celebrate the student who's answering yes or the student who's answering no. ¿Quién es Bad Bunny? Sí, no sé quién es Bad Bunny, pero escucho la música de whatever other thing. Oh, really? And what kind of music is that? Hopefully in the target language. Well, that's country music. Okay, and why you like country music? Oh, because of this. Okay, anyone in your family and want us to listen to country music? Yes, that. Have you gone to a concert, country music concert? Yeah. Any other artists you like? See, I have to make the student feel that the answer they just gave me matters so much that I want to keep asking about it. Yes, it takes time, but you know what? This also creates community because students end up learning about the other students, things that they probably didn't know, and just because I kept asking questions. Okay, so this is connected to motivation as well. We talk about community. I mentioned it before. It's important that we create different ways of organizing our students to work with a pair in couples or groups of three, groups of 4, even divided the class into big groups, and always making sure that they are working with different people, okay? Also, when we talk about celebrating mistakes, we are building community. When we think about our communities, real communities in real life, sometimes we see people in trouble because they didn't do something wrong, something right. Because they're part of our community, we want to help that person. So it's the same thing in the classroom. We celebrate mistakes, we help our students, and by creating community, we teach our students to also support each other. Okay. By the way, I would like to invite you to a webinar that I'm going to be giving in the month of November. I think it's November 11, about creating community in the classroom. The whole webinar is dedicated to creating community. And this is a webinar from the series of NEL that I'm going to be doing for Clead World Languages and organized by Profe Carmen Reyes. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to share that document with you where I expand a little bit on the topic that I just presented. So I'm going to put it in the group. Okay, there you go. You can open it now. Okay, so this one is on relevance, community, and authentic purpose. All right, so authentic purpose. Okay, let's not forget that part. So for authentic purpose, the idea is to make the task real, not to make it just drills, because a drill is a drill and no one is going to get connected that way. Planning a class party. ¿Qué comida quieres en la fiesta? Recommending a song. Me gusta Shakira porque whatever. Voting on a favorite. So real tasks, things that are important. Why the language, in this case Spanish, matters for real class decisions. Okay. Now putting it together is just kind of like a review of what we have talk about today. It's already 3:03, so here we go. Remember, keep in mind, those warm-ups and the warm-up activities that I shared with you, and remember that they should be quick, and you need to make sure that you do it on a regular basis, not just once a week, okay? Also, the input phase. Remember, the most important thing is comprehensible input, making sure that the students understand and that we can use strategies to make them understand what we're trying to say. And comprehensible input can be used in any level of the language. I still use comprehensible input with my AP students. Students need to hear and understand the language before they have to produce. If they don't hear and they don't understand, it's going to be quite difficult for them to produce. If your students are not producing the language, it's because they are not listening enough and they are not understanding what you're trying to say in the classroom. Remember guiding those conversations with sentence frames, giving them models, okay? And also the community building, working with a partner, having roles, expanding on what we want to say. These are all strategies that I presented today, putting it all together. You don't have to do everything on Monday. And this little summary is also in this document that I'm going to share right now in the chat for you guys to have as reference. My suggestion will be print all of these things and put it on a binder with the name of the webinar by Diego Ojeda. Please give me some credit here. Okay. Muy bien. So, and the last thing, we just talked about it, authentic tasks. Let's make sure that it matters to them. Okay. Also, if we're asking them so many questions, it's important that we also share with the class the results of that inquiring session. So things like 8 estudiantes en la clase prefieren pizza, 7 estudiantes prefieren tacos, la clase prefiere pizza. We usually don't take the time to do this. We ask them a bunch of questions, they answer, and we leave it at that. No, let's share the results with them because that make it purposeful and it matters for them, okay? All right, my friends. So remember, think right now, what is one small change that you will apply tomorrow in your class to increase conversation? In the chat, what is one small change that you will apply on Monday in your classroom to increase conversation? Please share in the chat. What is one small change? Okay, I'll wait. I need water. Okay, here we have. Okay, you guys are answering. Keep going. Keep going. Perfecto. Keep going. Keep going. Awesome. Okay, so let's see. Answers. Yes, no corners, warm-ups, rejoinders, celebrate them, empezar la conversación con una pregunta que les interesa, using sentence structures to model conversation, use pictures, use CI in my class, one class to find out what they like to do, celebrate every attempt. I've not been good at this year. Yeah, I mean, it's natural. I mean, we're human. And sometimes we go through things that doesn't make us too enthusiastic, but we have to try. Cognados, give roles, sentence starters. Okay, thank you so much for those who answer. I'm so glad that you have found some of the things here useful. And here are all those documents, more documents that I promised to you. So I'm going to start sharing them. First, set of rejoinders for Spanish class, then set of rejoinders for French class, then sentence frames in Spanish, sentence frames in French, questions for beginners, and questions for beginners French. If you have colleagues who teach French, please take this and share with them. Let's spread the joy, my friends. So here we go. I'm going to start with rejoinders in Spanish. There goes. Then I'm going to copy the address for rejoinders in French. Here we go. Then sentence frames in Spanish. Copiar dirección. There you go. Then sentence frames in French. Copiar dirección. There you go. Okay. And then questions for beginner Spanish. And I know that some people are going to be watching this recording and they're like, what? I don't have access to those documents. Why? Because you were invited to be on the live presentation. But I know that live happens. Just send me an email and we'll see what we can do. I have shared with you rejoinders in Spanish and French, sentence frames in Spanish and French, and questions for beginners in Spanish and French. And I hope that you find them useful and that you can work with them in your instruction starting next week. Okay, conclusion here. Notice how we went from yes, no warm-up activities to input with images, to a guided routine, to an authentic task with real results. At no point did students feel forced. By the end of 10 minutes, they were speaking Spanish with confidence. This is how conversation emerges naturally when input and low-stakes speaking combine. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. My name is Diego Ojeda, Spanish teacher in Louisville, Kentucky. And that under my picture is my Instagram. And I would love for us to follow each other on Instagram. That's where you're going to find information on all the professional development, most of it free, that I do for world language teachers. Sometimes I present in English, sometimes I present in Spanish. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. Please write the Instagram, SR_Ojeda. And I'm going to stop the recording. And in the chat, please feel free